voices, the 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 voices. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Let's Discuss It. Today we will be discussing acting. I am your host, Adrian Lugo. Joining me as usual is my co-host, Mr. Michael Tucci, as well as Mrs. Kellianna Quirk and Mr. Bill Robertson. Good evening, everyone. How are we tonight?
I'm great.
Real good.
Gonna start off the conversation with a little background on everybody. Kelly, would you like to go first? Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I got into acting a little bit late in the game. I started when I was like 25. I'd done some workshop with Swarthmore Players Club when I was younger and always had a passion for it, but my high school really didn't have a good theater program. So I just eventually tried community theater and got into it that way. And I've been acting in the area for about 15 years, mostly like comedic and musicals.
Okay. Are you still acting?
No, well, no, not since I had Brixton. So,
Okay.
and then with the whole COVID thing, everything shut down, and I was going to start auditioning again, but there's not really a lot out there right now.
Got you. Okay. Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm the same way. I came into it late. I got into it through community theater in the little town I grew up in northern Pennsylvania. I had been playing drums for a long time, and it was starting to fizzle out. The passion for drumming was starting to fizzle out. And a buddy of mine who was a co-musician, been in several bands together with, he recommended me to the local community theater director for a role that he was looking to fill, and reached out to me. I said, what the heck, it sounds like fun. And I loved it and kept doing community theater. I ended up doing some student college film student short films and loved it even more. Ended up selling all my possessions and packing my Volkswagen Jetta with my belongings and driving to Los Angeles. I lived there for 4 years and did more student films, low, no pay stuff for about 4 years until I was about half starved to death and broke and moved home. And I haven't really done much since.
And I was probably a little bit responsible for him coming back, because we probably spent his last penny when we spent 8 hours at the bar at the Federal when I went out to visit.
There was always drinking money. I don't know how we always had drinking money, but yeah.
Priorities. So how long have you been acting, Bill?
I started around age 30. So I did it for a good almost 10 years. I'm 47. I'll be 47 this year.
Okay. Kelly, I've actually been to, I think, 2 of your plays.
Mm-hmm.
The one, Cardi on the Fence, and then it was one of those like Saturday Night Live type things.
Yeah, that was Schizoid. That was
Schizoid?
Schizoid was the name of that comedy troupe. We had like 3 productions that we put up, but that was so much fun because it really, it was like Saturday Night Live. You could write, improv, you had to kind of be quick on your feet, but it was all scripted, so we just had a really talented group, a lot of pretty experienced Philadelphia actors in that, and producers. Alex Drayman, he's a very famous playwright in the area. He wrote most of the scripts to start with, and El McComsey, they were pretty much the 2 head writers, and they were also the 2 producers. And then I went to an audition for them because I had known one of the other actors, a couple of the actors that were already in it, and they were looking for some more women. So that's how I got that. It was so much fun.
So you said that it was scripted, but you were allowed to improv?
Well, no, like you had to do a little bit of improv, like if it was mostly scripted, right?
Okay.
But it would like, you could throw things in a little bit here and there. So it's
Ever
sketch,
get- did
not
you ever
improv,
get-
it's sketch.
Did you ever get blindsided by something that somebody threw in?
Not that I remember. Um, I'm pretty good at kind of staying in character.
Yeah.
I'm
that's
also
good.
a teacher, so I think that has a lot to do with it. I'm throwing stuff at me left and right every day.
Bill, did you ever do any improv?
Not really. I tried, I guess, here and there, but I was never very good at it. I'm a little bit too dull-witted.
I would think that would be a really difficult skill to learn well.
Yeah.
Unless you're a gregarious person who just can't stop talking all the time. I think that would be the type of person that could just kind of keep going because it's natural to them. But I think it would be fun. I would like to sometime take an improv class.
You should, because there's a formula to it.
Yeah, because I know it will be completely out of my wheelhouse. I'll be stupidly nervous and everything, and I think that's what'll make it fun. And I do software training for a job, so it may even help in teaching.
Yeah.
Did you get to write anything as far as the skits go, Kelly?
I wrote a couple pieces, but I found out I wasn't really that good at writing. I mean, I used to be good when I was younger, like just writing general things, but script writing is a whole different animal, and I never took any classes in it. So I was just really kind of playing around with it. We almost put up one of my shows. We might have put up another one. I don't remember, but yeah, I was just like, all right, I'll stick with the acting part. Yeah, it's tough. Joe's written a lot. My husband, I met him at an audition, and he's also a local theater person. He was in the wait staff for a really long time, and he wrote a lot of sketches for that. So
Now,
I live vicariously.
does he still act?
No, so he and his one of the guys from the wait staff broke off and started doing some stuff called, well, their troupe was Fell and Fiercely. It was like a musical sketch comedy. It was like a smaller version of the wait staff, but they did a couple fringe shows, and then that fell apart because the other guy just kind of stopped writing, and then family life got in the way, and so Joe fell out of it. But he was on a theater scholarship to Hofstra, so he has always been acting since he started when he was 12.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, and he's so busy with his job now that he didn't really have time for it. Like when he got this position, he didn't have time for it, and he still has not really gone back to it.
Well,
Yeah.
well, just remember, Morgan Freeman did not get his big break in movies until 59.
There you go. Oh, wait, what was the woman from Titanic? She was older than that. She was like 80 something, and she got an Oscar.
Oh, did she? Well,
Mhm.
so Morgan Freeman, I mean, he'd evidently been in theater and bit jobs, but never was able to live off of anything that he made from acting most of
Right.
his life. But it was 1989 Driving Miss Daisy, which was his breakout. And he
Wow.
was evidently 59 years old. It's hard to believe he was 59 in 89 and he's still around. And he still looks great.
I know. Has not changed.
Daggone Hollywood plastic surgeons.
Yeah. A little Botox. Never hurt anyone, right? Yeah, I have friends who like they do it as their full-time job, and they scrape, and and they're really, really good. A friend of mine just did uh what was it called? Dispatches from Elsewhere. That was on AMC, and she had a really small part, but she got to play with against Sally Field, and yeah, and who else is in it? Um God, what's his name? It's a show on AMC, and it's been getting all these awards and stuff lately. So, but she had like this little waitress role, but she's been doing theater. Like she's very well known in Philadelphia theater. She's been doing it forever. We were in a show together like when I was in her 20s, and she was just really starting to break through then, and she's still like hammering away at it. But I'm like, I don't know. It takes a lot of tenacity.
I can only imagine. I mean, I only know from the musician side, and pretty much from starting my first band with Bill, that I never had any ideas that we were going to be able to live off of it, even if we got successful. Because we did heavy progressive music. And so it wasn't like it was going to ever become really popular. I was just hoping that we would get to a point where we could maybe do 4 or 5 festivals a year, which would have been a lot of fun. And then just do gigs around Philly, or wherever we were. But it's tough because it's all your time after work, because you got to make a paycheck, and it really can grind it out of you.
Yeah, the competition is fierce, especially for women. Like, I think men, no offense, have a little easier time at it, especially like if you have a certain look. I don't know, but I feel that I guess like sometimes the quirkier that you are, you do kind of, if you can find that little niche, then you're good. But I don't know, it's just such fierce competition.
Yeah. Bill, when you were in LA, did you kind of see like any certain formula of what people were like who really started to get known?
Other than just balls to the wall every day, sending in your headshot to someplace, taking an acting class with some instructor, belonging to an improv group. That's all I saw. I didn't really see anybody climb up through the ranks. I saw one. We auditioned one girl for a web series we were making, and that was probably a year or two before I moved back home. And after I'd moved back home and been home for a couple years, I was looking around on Amazon Prime, or not Amazon Prime, it was some kind of funky network, but I saw that she was the star of the series.
Oh,
wow.
But I didn't really know much about her. She was very focused. I don't know what her routine was or anything, but she was very focused. She was stalwart. And apparently, I don't know. I think I think it has a lot to do with who you meet in the circles. A lot of networking goes on, and I think it has a lot to do with who you run into and how well you click with them.
What made you get into acting?
Me?
Actually, well, both of you. Like, what made you decide, hey, I want to act, or let's give this a try?
Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell, writer
No.
from, I don't know, he passed away in the late 80s, but he wrote a book called The Hero's Journey, and a lot of screenwriters use the map that it lays out to map out a screenplay. But basically, it tells you to follow your bliss. And my bliss from the time I was 16-ish until 30-ish was drumming. But by the time I was nearing 30, it was really starting to fizzle. It was really more of a chore than it was fun. And like I said, I'd gotten that surprise offer to play a part in community theater. I tried it, and it lit me up, and I loved it. And that's what did it.
That's pretty cool. I remember, I think it was like sophomore year in high school, we had to actually recite something in English class, like a report or something. I forget exactly what it was, but I was having trouble remembering what I was supposed to be reciting. And the teacher, I remember her saying to the class that, if you can remember the lyrics to a song, you should be able to remember this. And I can remember some lyrics, the songs, when I listen to them over and over again, especially if it's something that I like. But trying to remember something that I have to read, like even with this, like I type out the little intro, like thank you for joining us, and I have a problem reading that, let alone like trying to remember something. How do you remember what you're supposed to say?
I've
I have a
always
hard time
had,
with it.
yeah, like I've had a photogenic memory. It's kind of weird. I almost read the words in my head, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I can't remember everything until I get my blocking. So if my
You have to
blocking
be in a
changes,
certain place in
certain
order for
place,
the lines to come.
yeah, it's that
Yeah.
association. And I don't know, that just seems to help because I was really nervous. I did my first Shakespeare, first and only, which was Macbeth, not that long ago. What was it, 2005? And I was really nervous about it. Joe had done Shakespeare since he was, like I said, probably since the beginning. Like he was in a Shakespeare drama club when he was like 12, 13. And I'd never done any. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do this. And he's just like, well, just learn the meaning of what you're saying first, and then you'll get the rhythm of the language. And that's exactly the way it works out. And then it all starts, then you get the rhythm of the language, and then you go back and kind of review what it means, and then it all kinds of comes together at once. At least that was the process. But
One of my favorites. I've seen a few. I've been lucky enough to see some Shakespeare plays done in London by the Royal Shakespeare Company.
wow.
And I was never a fan of Shakespeare. Not because of Shakespeare himself. I was an English major, so I know what kind of seminal figure he is in literature. But it probably stemmed from my high school, as a high school senior, the last English class we took was Shakespeare. And I was in the top 10% of my class. I never got in trouble. I was the student that every teacher wanted to have in their class because I participated and all that kind of stuff. And I told Lizard Woman Lawrence in the beginning of the class, I said, you have to bear with me. When I got assigned my first part that I had to read, said you have to understand, I don't read regular English well out loud. I'm not good at reading out loud. So I just want you to know that. I was like halfway through one of the soliloquies in Macbeth, and she slams her hand down on the table and yells, "Are you trying to do this?" And I looked up mortified. She thought I was mocking it because I couldn't read well. She threw me out of class. I was like, you got to be kidding me. You threw me out of class? I mean, I managed to pass the class, but I had a bad taste in my mouth for Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's awful.
But this is kind of a long story. So when in college, when we went to Britain for an independent study, there were 9 of us and one professor. We saw Twelfth Night, and it was one of the most hilarious plays I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, this is Shakespeare? It was an eye-opener. But then like 5 years ago, and I don't even know if this troupe is still together, but there was a troupe in Philadelphia that used to do, they may have only done one show, but they would do outdoor shows. The concept was, they book a venue, like, so a meetup I was part of, a beer group. There was the Tap House that's in University City. And they have the big balcony, second floor balcony that looks out over Market Street. And they got a portion of that to do this production of, and I think that was this was Midsummer Night's Dream.
Nice.
And they were phenomenal, and they were involving everyone in the audience.
That's cool.
And they also would switch out. So whoever wasn't acting had the script, because they had only gone through it twice
Mhm.
before they performed it. And
Wow.
so they'd be in the middle of something with a serious, thing. And then they go, damn it. And then the person sitting there would yell out like 3 words, and bam, they were right back on it. And I was like, wow, how did they, and the men, and boom, they were right back in, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. But it was so cool because you got to see an imperfect production that was also interactive with the audience. The actors were phenomenal, but you were seeing something that really wasn't that polished, and it really made you feel closer to the actors, and what was going on, and they made it fun.
Mhm.
So that was one of the neatest things and I asked them if they were going to do anything else, and they said that they tentatively had something planned, but I never heard about anything after that.
I know what you mean. I always like the variety shows, going all the way back to the Carol Burnett show, Saturday Night Live,
Mhm.
especially when you could tell that they were off script or they messed up.
Yeah,
It was just that made it that much better when they
Yeah,
messed up.
exactly.
they're human.
Yeah, yeah, and they're so super talented that they
Yeah.
keep going.
So my father, I remember, so when I was a kid, my father took us, the first time he took us to the theater, it was for Fiddler on the Roof in Philadelphia. Absolutely phenomenal. And as great as it was, my dad was saying they did a really good job. I really liked it, but it can never compare to the first time he and my mom saw it together in New York, where, and it was a big name actor. I mean, it was a big star who was recognizable in movies in the 60s and everything like that. And I forget who the actor was, but my dad was saying what he would do on stage is he'd go completely off and relate certain scenes to things that were going on in the real world at the time.
Cool.
And I guess he was so good, you don't say, no, you're not allowed to do that. but that would have been really neat, because you think about on a stage, man, there's nothing stopping you from doing whatever the hell you want to do. There's no one there to say cut.
Nope.
One of the many reasons I moved to Puerto Rico was I just wasn't happy, and I wouldn't do anything. Like I worked and that was it. I had my personal training studio and couldn't really use that because I was working my full-time job. And so, coming home 8, 9 o'clock at night, nobody really wants to work out. But I wanted to go and do stuff, and like I had the money, I could have gone and done different things, but I never did. And I just got tired of it and said, all right, I'm out of here. And being on the island for 3 years, I think back and like so many things have changed, and like changed with me, where I gone to a play when I was in school. We saw West Side Story, and I think I may have seen another play after that, but this is as a kid. But now coming back from Puerto Rico, it's like these are types of things that I want to do now. Like I want to go and see plays. I was supposed to go to New York last year for my birthday and see Phantom of the Opera, and it got canceled because of COVID. So once everything is, back to normal, I hope that I can like actually go and do that. But it's like going to see like a play, going to see an opera, going to see like different things. it's really interesting to me. And like I saw the one play that you were in, Kelly.
Mhm.
Was it you? Did you do a play? It was what was it? Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes, that was my swan song, at least for the time being. Is that
Okay.
the one you saw me in? I thought you saw me in Cabaret.
No, I saw you in the
Cabaret.
Coyote on a Fence.
Oh, the
You had
script in
told
hand.
you had told me about the Jekyll and Hyde, and I really wanted to see it.
Mhm.
I just didn't want to go by myself, and the girl that was going to go with me backed out, and so I think by the
Okay.
time like I decided, oh, well, I'll go anyway, it was sold out, so I didn't get to see it.
Uh,
It really sucks because I remember you had given me like some kind of description of it and everything, and it sounded really cool.
the
And
music's, just love the music. And it's very, I play the music, it's funny, I play the music every Halloween because that's when we put it up, and obviously it's got those dark murder themes to it. But yeah, that I remember like auditioning with music from that like years before I ever got that role. It's just that's like one of my
Bill
that's one
has
of my
some
favorite roles.
Bill has some good dark horror stuff.
Oh, you're talking about The Perfect House?
Yeah. I was just thinking I'm selling my house. I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine that didn't pop into my head before today. I was like, I wonder if anyone had any weird experiences in the house when they were looking at
Yeah, I just recently bought a house, and same kind of things went through my mind.
it. How did that come along for you? How did you get into that?
I did a web series for the director prior to it. I auditioned for Chris did a web series. It was kind of a knockoff of The Office.
Mhm.
It was called Collectors. It was about those collection agencies that cold call people that owe money. And I got that part, and we did an episode or a pilot for that to try and make it into a TV show or something. I guess no, it wasn't going to be a web series. It was a pilot to try and sell it as a TV show. But then after that, not too long after that, he started getting the ball rolling on The Perfect House, the film, and I just he just asked me basically to do that.
Cool. That was a neat movie. I like that.
Yeah, a year or so after I moved back to Pennsylvania and was starting to date my wife at the time, my girlfriend is starting to date my girlfriend now, my wife. We were in Walmart and found a copy of it in Walmart.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
she won't
so
watch it though. She doesn't like horror.
I have
I
a friend
just
who does makeup, and he works on horror films. He makes
oh that's
masks and
cool.
he does all bloody stuff. Yeah,
Those
that's
people
fun.
are cool. Those guys are super cool. I wish I could do that kind of stuff.
I know. He's got some really like they throw a Halloween party every year. We always go to like just like check out like something that he made.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
There's an alt model that I follow online named Sarah Muddle, and she does the horror makeup, and just some of the stuff that she's done that she has on her page, it's just wild, where she actually makes like the mouth go from like
Hmm.
underneath her nose all the way down to her throat and stuff. And it's like, how do you do this stuff and not make it look like just a painted human neck?
Right. It's crazy.
it's amazing.
can either of you talk in a different accent?
Yes, but it's been a while. What accent would you like? Southern?
Well, any accent.
British? You want a British girl? I don't know. It's so funny because like I have like a bunch of accents and they sometimes all blend together if I don't work on them for a while. So I made up this place that I come from called Ursh, And Ursh is where you have basically a little bit of everything all blended into one accent. So it can change at any moment. It's
That's
funny.
kind of cool.
This
Like your own
is
little
what
play area.
I know. I just imagine it like there's an island and I'm the queen of it, and it's called Ursh. It's like sometimes I still talking like a British girl, and then it will like manifest into like Irish somehow, or like a word I'll say, and then I don't know. I played I think probably the best accent I ever did was Fräulein Kost. Fräulein Kost is of Germany. Yeah, and I had to learn a song entirely in German, which I mean, I am German, I have German heritage, but I never spoken German. I've never learned the language. So I really just had to listen to the recording over and over and over again to just get the accent down right. And I remember somebody at the end of the show, that was Cabaret, by the way, complimented me. He's like, yeah, I lived in Germany for a while, or I'm a German professor or something like that. He's like, your accent's very good. I'm like, wow, that was like the best compliment I ever got.
Were you
Now, was
speaking
that
in German? Or
I
just
had to
with
sing
a,
in German. Yeah, I had to sing in
y-
German with the accent.
oh
so?
wow.
I think it's easier to get accents when you're singing than it is speaking, because even like the heaviest British accent that you can't understand for your life,
Right.
if they sing, you completely understand them. And there's a lot of British singers that don't even sound British when they're
Right.
singing. So I think and it has to do with, how you sing your vowels and how you accent your consonants and things
Sure.
like that. So as long as you're doing it like exactly like the person that
Yeah.
you're imitating, then you're going to sound real. That actually used to be, so back in, I think it was 70s and 80s, but I know in the 80s, there were these clubs in Hong Kong and Japan. And in those clubs, they sang all American pop songs, usually pop songs from the 60s or 70s. And miraculously, the singers, most of them female, because these weren't the most reputable types of clubs. And obviously, I was really young, so this isn't an experience. I learned about these things. I wasn't going to these places. The singers didn't know any English, and they learned all the songs phonetically.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things so I have a healthy appreciation of Antonio Banderas now. And what really made that was when I think it was in an interview that I saw with him, and the interviewer brought this up. The first two American movies that he didn't know how to speak English at all. He did all of the lines phonetically. He memorized the phonetics. I was like, holy crap, dude, you acted and you didn't even know what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah.
And I'm sure someone explained everything to him, but still, that's pretty wild when you're making foreign sounds out of your mouth that don't register in your ear,
Right.
and you're acting.
Yeah, I mean, I know that was a challenge. Like, I think I learned just like playing around with the accent, with the German accent first, and then singing with the song. But I've done Southern accents, but I have family from the South, so I noticed like every time I talk to them or I'm around them, it starts coming out, and still like it'll come out. I'm like, hey y'all. But yeah, you're right. It's like about the subtlety of it, like don't put an emphasis on every single vowel sound. It's just certain sounds, and then you have to kind of like for like I'm thinking British, English, and there's different regions. That's the other part too, is like learning that region's dialect. I was reading that article about Kate Winslet trying to learn the Delaware County accent, and she's like, it's up there with my top 3. She's like, it made me through things. It was that hard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yep, it's a hard one unless you grow up here.
Yeah.
Mike and I have a mutual friend who does acting. She's also a musician, but she's done acting in like community theater. And I think it was, I want to say 2019. She actually co-directed the play Dracula. And when she told me about it, you know, right away, I wanted to go. Again, I didn't really want to go by myself because I don't like crowds. But
So I want to add an additional person to the crowd to make me feel more comfortable.
well,
Make the
somebody that I
crowd one
know.
person bigger.
It'd be a little more comfortable for me knowing somebody there that I can sit with instead of a bunch of strangers in a room. But
That's true.
I had somebody who was going to go with me, and then they backed out. And I said, "The hell with it! I'm going to this one." And it was a really, really good play. The acting was amazing, and there was one. I forget what character it was, but I'm watching the guy the entire time, and I'm trying to figure out, like, is that his voice? Because it doesn't sound like it's his voice. Like he's speaking in a different voice, but it seems so real that like I can't decide. I can't figure it out. And afterwards, when I was talking with our friend, and other the performers were coming up to her and stuff. So as they came up to her, she would introduce me to them, and it was the one guy, with the voice. And when he was talking to me, he was talking in his real voice. And it just amazes me that like the talent that where you can just completely change who you are. Just being in like character is something, but then changing your voice completely and doing it consistently for like the 2 or 3 hours throughout that whole play. That was really amazing to me. That's why I was asking about the accents, if you can speak in it, because it's
Yeah, but I think it's like kind of like the Shakespeare thing where there's almost like a rhythm to it. And, once you learn the lines, then you work on the dialogue. I remember, like auditioning for, I auditioned for a show. It was like probably like the second or third show I ever did where I needed a Southern accent. And I didn't know when I was reading the lines whether to read it in the Southern accent or not, because I'd been told you really should just read it as yourself, not with the accent unless you're requested. So that's still like something tricky I always struggle with. Like if I have a monologue that I'm going to audition with, do I use the accent or not? I don't know.
And I never even would have thought of that. Bill, did you ever have anything like that?
One of the last community theater plays that I did was Witness for the Prosecution, and I was, is his name Edward Vole, the guy that's on trial in the play and in the movie, in the novel, and I had to do it with British Cockney.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had people, coworkers, come watch it and say, "Yeah, you had me pretty fooled throughout, but every once in a while I could hear your real voice come through." So I wasn't totally fooling everybody.
Well, see, that even happens to some of the best. One of the plays that I saw when I was in on that English trip in Britain back in the 80s, and it was also the National Shakespeare Theater. They were doing Tennessee Williams' Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And it was actually the first play that we went to see because I went to a Southern school, Washington and Lee. And so me and I think one other person were Yankees and everyone else was from the South, including our professor. And they wanted to see how did these Brits do a Southern accent because they thought it was going to be terrible. Turned out they were phenomenal. And even our professor was floored. But the one guy who was the antagonist whenever he got to he was the one who would get irate and yell in that play. And whenever he got into that anger mode, he flipped right back into British. But he was the only one. And when he wasn't playing the angry part, he was perfect. So it was interesting to see that. But it was remarkable. Now, granted, the National Shakespeare Theater, they better have some of the best, voice instructors and accent people.
Dialect coaches, yeah.
But it's I've even known there have been some actors where I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize they were British. Because I saw them in an American role as an American. I was like, what?
Some of my favorites to listen to are Ewan McGregor, James McAvoy, because they're both British, Scottish, something. And it's fun to listen to them do an English role, because both of them do slip up here and there. You can catch them here and there. That's interesting to me when you hear them. Just one word in a sentence. They just can't quite spit out correctly.
So one of the funniest on-screen renditions of trying to learn an accent is oh God, Hugh Grant in the movie. What was the name of that movie where his fiance's dad is the New York mobster? And it's played by James Caan, and James Caan is trying to get him to say, forget about it.
Oh yeah.
And he's going, no, the T's are like D's. And he was like, forget about it. I was just dying.
He's hilarious.
I've seen interviews with different actors where you see them in the movies and you think they speak English because that's what they're with an English accent, and then you see them in an interview where they're just being themselves, and it's completely different. And I think the first time I saw that was I want to say Daniel Lewis is his name.
Daniel
Day-Lewis?
No, he was on the show Homeland on Showtime, I think, and he was also in that World War II series, Band of Brothers. He's British.
Yes. No, I know who you're talking about.
Damian Lewis, I think is his name.
So he wasn't in Band of Brothers. He was in the Pacific.
That was in Band of Brothers.
Okay, well, they had actually one of the guys, because I'm watching. So you're talking about Homeland. I'm watching 24, and the guy who plays the part of the Marine who wrote the book Helmet for My Pillow, but he plays a part in the third season of 24, and I'm like, I can only see him as the guy in the Pacific.
I saw an interview with Damian Lewis, and again, him being himself, and it's like, who's this guy? I don't know who this is because he sounds completely different. And that was the first one that I really took notice to. And then I've seen an interview with Colin Farrell where he speaks with a Scottish accent. And it's like, wow, it's like, this is, I never realized that. I didn't know he was Scottish either. But I think it's just really cool, being able to, I don't know, just changing who you are, whether it's playing a character or a different voice, I think is really cool.
That's something that
check out Snatch with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I like
Brad
that movie.
Pitt does a really heavy, I don't know if it's Scottish or Irish, but Brad Pitt does a pretty good job in the movie Snatch of making it almost indecipherable. One of those people from the aisles that you just can't understand what they're saying.
I think I watched that movie like 3 times before I realized that was Brad Pitt. Like I
Wow.
actually had to look up like the credits to see like who are all these actors, you know.
Who is that handsome guy?
So
I had no idea.
that's the thing with Brad Pitt. I mean, he's the kind of guy that you just want to say he's only getting parts because he's the pretty boy, and then you watch him in something like what was it with
Like Clovers.
Bruce Willis, 13 Monkeys.
Yes.
And I'm like, holy crap, he's good. Like, damn. And then when he was with Anthony Hopkins, not in the one that everyone thinks of, but Meet Joe Black.
Mhm.
That's
He
what I was
was,
thinking of.
yeah, he was. So, well, there's another one, Legends of the Fall, which don't even get me on it because I hate the movie. Everyone loves it, and I hate it. But it's not because the movie's not done well. I mean, the acting's phenomenal, the writing's phenomenal. I just don't like basically the plot line is the one character in there, Brad Pitt's character, is the most flawed one, and he's the one that always breaks and runs away from his responsibilities. Yet in the end, he's glorified as the greatest one of them all, where his other 2 brothers all died on principle because they were immovable. And his dad did too. But so that's just my my thing on that. I see it a little differently than some people do.
What is your favorite character that you've played, or the favorite play or film that you've done?
Mine was Sylvia, which it started out off Broadway as a play written specifically with Sarah Jessica Parker in mind, and she plays a dog.
She
So
plays what?
a dog, but you would love it. It's this is my son Brick. Yeah.
Hello.
She's building dominoes. All right, go ahead. So she is supposed to be the love interest in this guy who's going through a midlife crisis. So you don't go, like, she's not on stage barking and wagging her tail. You see her as though she's like
We
an
like Sarah
ingenue.
Jessica Parker wagging her tail.
I bet. Yeah, she's a little more hoarse. But yeah, so she, like, you have lines, and then like there's parts like where she's going, hey, 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 and that's supposed to be like the bark. But this guy brings her home, and the wife is very jealous of the dog, right? And he's obsessed with this dog, and so she kind of drives a wedge between their marriage that was already kind of a little shaky. And so I got on stage, I got to curse a lot, all kinds of swear words. Yeah. And yeah, there's a scene like when she goes in heat. So I got to come out and dress real slutty. And yeah, I mean, it was just such a different part for me. I'd never thought about playing an animal before, but it wasn't really an animal the way it was presented. But I had to spend a lot of times on my hands and knees on the floor. I know, insert your joke there.
Now, did a man write that?
Probably, yeah, A.R. Gurney.
Go figure.
Yeah, right. Living out his fantasy. He's probably into S&M.
What was yours, Bill?
Captain Carpenter. It was a film that we made in Harrisburg back in 2007, 2008. I auditioned. I found the role on Craigslist.
And you're
Drove down
still alive to
Harrisburg.
tell about it.
I tell you what, Craigslist. I got so many parts on Craigslist when I lived in LA.
Wow.
And then when I moved back here, Craigslist was absolutely useless for finding anything, but except for trouble. But
That's what happens when they take the escorts off of Craigslist.
Yeah, then they got to get sneaky and trick you. But yeah, it was a movie called The Wolf. Filmed it in Harrisburg and around Harrisburg. I played a Union captain, Captain Carpenter, transporting a Confederate prisoner of war through the woods, and it was a haunted woods, and it was just the two of us. We were the only two actors in it, and I had a great time. I loved the character. Not even that I did anything extra special. I liked the costume. Had a really cool old revolver replica. It was just a good time, good memories. So it's not even that it like stretched my acting chops, because I'd barely started acting at the time anyway, but that's mine. You can watch it on YouTube.
What's the name of it?
The Wolf. I believe it's broken up into 3 or 4 or 5 parts, 10-minute, 15-minute segments on there or something. I'm not sure. If you find my YouTube page, it's in my playlists or something like that.
I have to check it out. Kelly, you recently posted something on Facebook, like one of those like question things where you answer all the questions.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about acting.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize you've done so much. You actually directed?
I was gonna say, I didn't realize I did so much until I filled that out. Yeah, but it was just a little short play. It wasn't a full length. I don't think I would ever want to direct a full length. It's a lot of work. I guess maybe because again I'm a teacher, it would be very similar to my job. So, but that was, yeah, it was interesting. You do get a little bit more control, and you have to make sure you have really good actors on stage that can follow direction. Because the worst thing is when you cast somebody that really can't make the changes that you're requesting, or they don't see what it is that you see on stage. That's always hard.
Now I have a question, and it's been something that I've really been more noticing lately. And so a friend of mine from Germany was in a suspense film that was at the Philadelphia Film Festival 5 years ago or so.
Mhm.
And so I watched this, and she was pretty good through the whole film until there was this one scene where she looked like a deer in the headlights for like 5 seconds, and then boom, it was right back into character. And I was like, what happened there? And if she wasn't supposed to do that, why didn't they edit it?
Yeah,
Or something like that. It was just really strange. And that was when I began to really look at actors in TV and movies and stuff, and really start to notice the micro expressions that are just so powerful, that make you connect on a strong human level with the character, not the person, not the actor. And I think that's the continuity that she lost in that split second, somehow, but that these actors can, it can be complete silence, just to focus on their face, and there's just a couple of slight things that you can notice, that just end up being super powerful, because that's how you would feel in that situation if you were in that situation yourself. Do you ever think about that kind of the micro expressions, like say you're contemplating this situation with breaking up with your boyfriend, and you're simultaneously torn, but you still love him, and something like that, and trying to get like this multi-layered type of emotion to show. I wouldn't even know how to. We all know what it feels like, and when it's happening to us, but I would have no idea how to put that across when I'm not in the situation.
I mean, I think you mean like if you were a director or if you were the actor.
In the acting, what is it? Do you think about the, a lot of micro expression sort of continuity type of thing? I don't even know if it's called that.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I don't know, Bill might be able to answer this better. I've done very little film work. I've done like a couple industrials, and I started to get into it a little bit. Like I was an extra in some movies, but I've been told, because I started out on stage, I tend to go above and beyond with my facial expressions. And I
Right.
have to really dial
Overly
it.
melodramatic, because
Mhm.
that's the stage. That's what the stage is.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have to reach the person in the back. So that's something I still work on. But I think as long as you're being as authentic as you can to the character, um, and then they might say, well, try it a different way, and then something else might come across. So, I mean, with film, you can just keep trying different things
Right. Yeah.
until they hit that moment.
I think what you're talking about, Mike, is like fine muscle control, especially in your face.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I was aware of how close the camera was, or if I was allowed to step behind the camera and see what the framing looked like, to see where my face was going to be in the frame and stuff like that. How long the particular take was going to be and what was happening in it. I would just basically like throw little twitches or little mannerisms in. I wouldn't even really think about it. I would just really, and it wasn't like somebody could tell you were wrong. Like the director could say, "Well, try this instead."
Yeah.
And I'd try a different muscle twitch in my face. I know what you're talking about. I watch people do that, and I always find it very cool. Especially if it something inexplicable like the twitch of a cheek, the quick rub of a nose, quick brushing away of a tear starting in the eye real quick, darting glance from one side to the, like, I always find that very effective sometimes in a very good performance. So I don't know what the key is to it. All I ever did was wing it. And I wouldn't say that I did an outstanding job with it, but it worked.
Yeah.
There's
It's
a
very
show
different than
on
the stage.
I believe it's Netflix, I Care a Lot, with Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, I want to see that.
It's really good.
Why didn't he change his name? Dinklage. He
Why-
went through hell in school with that name.
Why did he keep his porn name when he switched to serious acting? Yeah.
That's right.
You were talking about the micro expressions. There's a few scenes where in the beginning he's explaining to the Rosamund Pike's character who he is, and just the expressions on his face, like that he's making as he's talking to her. You kind of get the idea. It's like, okay, this guy's serious, and he's telling you that he's going to kill you. Just just with his facial expressions, he's telling you, he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill you. You know, so that's pretty cool. I don't think I've ever taken too much notice to it in movies, but that there stood out. And when you mentioned it, it made me think of it.
So that brings up a good question. Let's go round robin. Your favorite,
Like your top villain?
the evilest person that you've seen on screen. So for me, there were two: Robert De Niro and Cape Fear. That was just, and I think in the, now I joke about this because it was probably just that the AC was broken. But we joked about the fact that they were doing an experiment in this theater to see whether making the theater very warm would enhance the fear factor of the movie, which it did. I mean, people were like scared to death in that theater, and that character that Robert De Niro played was just so evil. The other one that probably ranks up there for me as one of the best played characters of all time is Ed Harris as the serial killer in I believe it's called Murder in the First. So that was a movie with Sean Connery, and it was a murder that was done in the swamps in Florida, and Sean Connery comes in as this big shot. I think he's the anti-death penalty lawyer, but whatever's happening in all these machinations, they have to go to this serial killer in jail, who is played by Ed Harris, in order to try to get information, the information that they're missing, to figure out what really happened in this. And and I had, just before watching this movie, I think I saw Ed Harris in Milk Money, where he's just like a regular dad, you know, and then he was so evil. I mean, it was just like, it was mind blowing. If you get a chance to see it, you got to see it.
That sounds good. I like Ed Harris. I'll check that out. For me, in recent memory, there's a TV show called Fargo, based on the Coen brothers movie Fargo from back in the late 90s. I can't remember if it's on Showtime or what. They're on their 4th season now, but the first season, the bad guy in it is played by Billy Bob Thornton, and he was absolutely terrifying.
He's terrifying when he's happy. What was Angelina Jolie thinking?
She's terrifying too.
Well, see, evidently what I heard was they both ended up having the same kinks, which is why they got along so well together.
Well, they wear a necklace with a vial of each other's blood.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of creeps.
What was Brad Pitt thinking?
He escaped intact.
With all but his mental capacity.
Yep.
And he gave up Jennifer Aniston.
Yes, he did.
What? All right. Sorry about the guy talk.
No, that's okay. You know, mine.
Yes.
Probably. I mean, I still think Anthony Hopkins is Hannibal Lecter.
Yes.
Just the stare. Just sends chills.
And his extension of the sibilance of S's, Clarice.
Yeah.
He would always hold on to that S.
Things. It's like he never blinked. And he just drag his.
The last line in that movie when he's flying on the airplane, and it's got the people. What does he say? Oh,
I don't know, but it's just so. Oh,
it was such a good line.
I actually watched that last week.
Did you?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in years. They have did they have a series coming out too?
I believe it's out already. It's called Clarice. It's funny because I was saying to one of my other friends, I was like, how stupid is it for a production company to come out with a TV series called Clarice, because everyone's going to immediately think of Silence of the Lambs, because I didn't know what it was about. Then I found out what it was about, and I was like, oh, of course.
Yeah, I get it.
There was a series on Netflix. I forget what channel it was originally on, but there was a series called Hannibal that it ended. I think it ended in like 16, and I never knew about it until recently. And there was like 2 seasons of it, and it goes through, and it's very, very good.
There's also 2 other there's the movie Hannibal, which I believe is the prequel to Silence of the Lambs, and then I think there's a 3rd movie that's
Red
Dragon. Yeah.
Red Dragon. Yeah.
They're on my list. I want to watch them. I just haven't gotten around to it.
All right, Adrian, yours. Most evil character.
I don't know if it'd be my favorite, but one that comes to mind from the Devil's Rejects is the serial killer family. Not that they were necessarily scary, but just because by the end of the movie, they're the good guys, or at least for me. You actually were rooting for them to get away, with the was it Freebird playing as they're driving into the ambush where the police are gonna like kill them, and they all get shot, and just watching it in slow motion. Maybe
Well,
I thought they were the good guys.
Yeah, I felt kind of the same way about House of 10,000 Corpses, Rob Zombie.
Mhm.
I mean, the clown dude, when he got killed, it's like, oh man, I love that guy. And of course, Rob Zombie's wife, you can never be angry with her.
I think I've run out of questions.
That's impossible.
I don't think I have anything else. Mike, anything you want to?
So much for those, every 15 minutes we're going to take a look.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I've been looking at the clock, and it's like, shit, we need to take a little break. And then it's like, we're just going through, and it's like, I'll figure it out.
Union requires every hour I get 10 minutes, I'm not union, don't worry.
I actually
Can you imagine that? They named the actors union SAG.
Right.
That's the last thing any of one ever want to be associated with.
Right. Could have called it Botox.
I need to go get my Botox.
Yeah.
I'm sagging.
Call it lift.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the union part, I actually looked down at the clock in the corner of the screen and said, has it been an hour?
You're gonna have to pay her double time for those 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah. That was nice. I worked on one union musical before. That was just different. I was like, oh, this is nice. You get some little 10-minute breaks here and there. It was like they were very like on top of things, like can't do this, can't do that, or we can't do this and we can't do that. I felt very well taken care of.
I guess that's like the big goal of most actors is to get into the guild. Because doesn't that like guarantee you like a minimum whenever you're hired?
And you get craft services too. You don't get the box lunch. You get actually like a hot buffet. I did like I said, like one extra part I did was in Invincible with Mark Wahlberg, and another friend of mine who is it was like, oh my gosh, it was so hot, and I had to wear the 70s hippie clothes outside in the stadium. But a friend of mine, I saw him there, and I was like, hey, Basil, and he was union, so he's in there, he's like getting the salad bar, and I'm like, here's my little sandwich and a box. I'm gonna go sit over here, and he's like, I felt like flipping him off.
Did you ever get to have any interaction with Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah, he came out and he was on the field and he was super nice and just talked to us for a little bit and yeah, waved and
Cool.
was just like,
He impresses me as that kind of down to earth,
yeah.
really good guy.
It's funny, I have a connection to him. I wrote, because I was like obsessed with New Kids on the Block, and Donnie was my favorite. And I wrote to Donnie, and his mother wrote back to me. And I still have this letter. It's like a total like Xerox letter. She probably sent them to every girl that wrote. But I was like, I thought that was really nice that his family would do that. You know, like his mom was like president of his fan club or something. That right there kind of told me something.
My girlfriend in high school, her dad was a pit boss at one of the casinos in Atlantic City.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually in the Actors Guild. It was required of him, from what I was told, because he was an extra in a couple of movies that were filmed there. Snake Eyes and I want to say Rounders.
Yes, with Matt Damon. Love that movie.
He was one of the movies you can actually see him for like a real brief, moment where he's got
That's
this
fun.
dumb look on his face. But I know it was at least two. It may have been like three movies he was an extra in, just because they were filming there and right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But he never really did anything past that. But they had said that it was required of him, like you have to join the guild because you've done X. So
That's what I figure is going to be my retirement job once I'm done teaching. Get back into it, just do extra work, do industrials, do commercials, things like that. It's a great part-time job, don't you think?
So the
Retirement
funniest,
job.
yeah, funniest story I have related to that is actually about my brother. This is like, I think it was like 1990, 91. And my brother and one of his friends from college were working in Center City. And they were out for lunch this one day. And they're walking around this corner in Center City. And this taxi goes by. And Tom Hanks is in the taxi. And my brother goes, "Oh my God, that's Tom Hanks." And he hears down from the end of the street, "Cut!" They were filming Philadelphia.
Oh, man.
He totally busted the whole scene.
Whoops.
did
Must
he
have
in
been pretty
trouble for it?
believable.
I think they probably got out of there fairly quickly at that point.
No.
I mean, there was probably security nearby, because they don't exactly let random people just walk through the set.
When I moved to Lansdowne in 2011, I think it was, they were actually filming a movie there with Bradley Cooper, the Silver Lining
Linings.
Playbook.
Yep.
Yeah. A couple of my clients from my personal training, they were actually extras in the movie. I forget how I think they were like standing around or something. It's like, hey, we need you over here. But I don't know if they got any camera time or not. But it was, I actually lived like right off of Lansdowne Ave, and like trying to get home the one day, I had to go all the way around because they had it blocked off. And then I just like walked up to the street and there's a lady there with a flashlight and it's like, what's going on? Like, I thought there was an accident or something. She goes, no, we're filming a movie. It's like, oh, okay.
Bill, did you ever accidentally run into any filming going on in LA when you were like just making your way downtown anytime?
Beyond just seeing like the grip truck and the crew hauling equipment in and out and setting it up and stuff, no, not really.
Mm-hmm.
Probably mostly soundstage.
Tripping over cables and light stand. I ran into Britney Spears coming out of a Bed Bath & Beyond, and the
wow.
paparazzi immediately was on top of her and chased her down the street. You guys familiar with Leonard Maltin, famous movie critic or reviewer? I passed him in a parking lot at a Home Depot or something. I went to a no, it wasn't an anniversary screening. I think it was a benefit screening of The Empire Strikes Back, and walked right past Ewan McGregor.
Oh,
Oh,
I would have died.
Actually got his picture too. I don't know. I have a terrible memory. I know there was more than that, but those are the ones that pop into my mind right now.
it's kind of wild place that you can just randomly run into people like that. But I guess that's why they're all there. Is it's
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like my nephew lived in Culver City. Well, he still lives out there. And he lived like very close to Lindsay Lohan. Like would just run into her, see her sitting at a bar. And it's like, but out there, like people don't like blink twice because you see like so many passing, or like
So
like
he'd
one
walk
time,
in.
yeah, like
He'd
you walk in.
walk in and see Lindsay Lohan 3 sheets to the wind of the bar.
Mhm. That's what I was like. Oh, it's so funny that she's in a bar. Like,
Yeah.
so
So much for that stint in
unusual,
rehab.
right?
Maybe
Yeah,
they
that
have
was
really good
before she-
coffee there.
Didn't think this would choose that. Yeah, my sister went to, well, like my niece got married 2018, and they went to like a small Italian BYO, or no, maybe it wasn't BYO, but it was a small Italian place, really really good food. And apparently I think they ran into like Robert De Niro or somebody of that ilk. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I swear, like I don't get to see any of those people. Like I went out there and I saw like some guy from like Mad TV or whatever. And then I'm like, can I just run into somebody famous? I went to a taping of Conan. That was like
one of the
I saw him. So go ahead, sorry.
one of the best stories I heard, and it was I work a part-time job at a cigar store on the weekends, and we get quite the cast of characters. And this guy is, he's retired, but he was a big businessman, traveled a lot, and he was telling me one time how cool Robert Redford. I was like, "You've met him?" And he goes, "Yeah, it was actually really odd." He said that I think it was Sun Valley. He's has a place in Sun Valley, right?
Mhm.
Idaho. So he goes, I was up in Sun Valley and it was the off season. So there's nobody there. And he was staying in the resort that's like the ski resort. And so he's like the only one in the dining room. And this guy walks up to him and starts talking to him and says, why don't you come over here and have dinner with me? And it was Robert Redford. And it was like, because there's nobody in the place. So Robert Redford wanted somebody to talk to. And he said he was just the coolest guy, like anybody else you'd ever want to meet.
That's awesome.
That's sweet.
Great story.
The best
even-
run-in I ever had was actually not with an actor. It was with a musician. I ran into Steve Perry at a Daphne's Greek fast food restaurant. Got to talk to him for a couple minutes.
That's awesome.
Wow. He's like my favorite singer.
Yeah. I was a bumbling, stumbling idiot talking to him, but he was really cool and nice about it.
We got Chris Cornell's autograph backstage after the Electric Factory show one time. He was really nice. Like, I don't know. He was out there just for a little bit, but
You can probably
like
sell that on eBay right now.
I was really starstruck. Well, my husband's such a huge fan, and I got it framed with like a CD and
Well, I was
everything
gonna
right
say,
when he died. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean that seriously because it's so tragic.
I know, and it was so shocking. Like that was probably the worst celebrity death. That just threw me for a loop. Like,
well, most of the other celebrities that do that, the public has known that they've struggled with depression.
right.
In one way or another, somehow the public knows. I don't think anybody knew that Chris Cornell was having any issues.
No, And I don't know, part of me also thinks that it, it really was just unintentional, but because when you read the side effects of that medication that he was taking, the Ativan,
Mhm.
it's it's like, yeah, it makes you suicidal. And I'm like, well, then what, like what doctor, or, maybe it wasn't even the doctor, it was just he just took too
Well,
much.
so you have to be careful about that, because all psychotic meds, that is
Mhm.
a possible side effect,
Right. Yeah.
because and it's because they're changing the chemical distribution in the brain.
Right.
So if they change it correctly, everything goes fine, and you feel better, and you feel more even keeled.
Mhm.
But it may not do that, and that's why you're supposed to report it. If you feel if you have suicidal thoughts on
Mhm.
it, you need to report it to your doctor as soon as possible. And and I mean, you think about it, it's like, why would I want to take antidepressant meds that might make me want to commit suicide? But they all say that.
Yeah. The black box warning.
Yeah. So I mean, it can easily be the levels weren't right, or I mean, obviously he had an issue with depression because he was getting it prescribed.
Right.
But nobody really, his family knew. I guess his wife knew, but she had no idea that he was feeling that way. She seemed as blindsided as everybody else.
Yeah.
All the big grunge Seattle singers have gone except for
Eddie
Eddie
Vedder.
Vedder.
And
Jesus, the last
was
one
Kent Dave Grohl.
Nah,
Original Nirvana.
yeah,
The
I
girl
can
went
do
to high
without
school with
Eddie
was
Vedder.
cousins with him.
What's that?
A girl I went to high school with was cousins with Eddie Vedder.
Was cousins? She's not cousins with him anymore.
She hates him too, Mike. She disowned him.
When I was doing the music promotion, I got to interview some musicians, and prior to that, I actually met Zach Wild at one of the Ozfests. I forget which one. He was signing CDs, and I was very, very drunk and made a fool of myself. Then actually, after when I stopped doing music promotion, I actually met him again, a friend of mine who did band merch for Judas Priest at the time, and Black Label Society was touring with Judas Priest. So up in Reading, I was able to get a ticket, and my friend surprised me with, the meet and greet, and I felt really bad going to it because I didn't pay for it. And so I didn't feel as if I belonged there because everybody else paid for it, and here I'm going in for free. And I asked him about it. He goes, "No, I checked.
Damn conscience.
Everybody's okay with it. They approved it, so you're good." And so I got to meet them, and then they did the picture, and then everybody got in line, and they did the autograph signing. And I wasn't expecting to see him, to meet anybody, so I didn't bring any like memorabilia with me. Not that I had any, but everybody else is standing. Is like, "Why don't you get in line and have them sign, give you an autograph?" It's like, I have nothing to sign, and they just looked at my arms, and it's like, "You got plenty of space." So I actually got the band's autograph on my wrists. And when Zach Wild
And
was
you
the
didn't
last
have
one to
that
sign,
tattooed?
Yeah.
I was going to, and he actually signed over, because at the time I didn't have my forearms done. I just had my wrists, and then actually I think I had part of this one. Like it wasn't finished yet, but he signed over the tattoo on my wrist, and it pissed me off. And I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, why are you like signing over?" And then I was like, "Oh, I get it." Because one, I'm there for free, and two, it's like I'm getting a tattoo of your autograph. So I don't think he really appreciated it very much. But I quickly like washed it off afterwards, So I get to meet Zach Wild, who I'm a big
Son
fan
of
of.
a bitch.
Not once, but twice I make a fool of myself.
I hate to break the party, guys, but I gotta go put my kid to bed.
Is that why he keeps
All right.
jumping in behind you?
Yeah, well, he does this like when I do my Zumba classes online, he likes to come in and dance, and all the girls give him attention, so that's what he likes. He's a Leo. He's definitely a lover of attention.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, so this was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. That
Thanks
was fun.
again, Adrian.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Adrian, thanks. That was cool.
Sure, thanks for being a part of it. Get this edited and up on like YouTube and the website. I'll let you guys know, and you just can check it out. Voices, 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 the voices, the voices, the voices.